And welcome from the Full Stack Data Workshop. My name is Sam. I'm the host of the Full Stack Data Workshop, and this is a live series that's happening in the RTP area, Raleigh, North Carolina, throughout 2024. This video was recorded on March 26th, 2024, and the CEO of Mage, Tommy, came to speak to us. It is a pipeline orchestration tool, essentially in the data engineering space. Came to speak to us about some of the capabilities of the tool itself. If you haven't heard of Mage, if you haven't worked with it yet, I definitely recommend you dive in and get to learn a little bit more about it. The documentation is really, really great. So start there, play around with it, see what you can build. And definitely check out this video. They showed us some really cool tips and tricks and Easter eggs that I haven't seen in documentation or any of the pre-made videos before that are on their website. So I thought we got a really cool look at some of the capabilities and features that Mage has. They're moving really fast. They're building really fast. This is April 2024 now that I'm releasing this recording. So I'm sure by the time you're seeing this, there might be some new cool tips and tricks. But we, at least starting here, have a lot to look at and a lot to learn from. So jump in, dive in, and learn some really cool stuff with us.
Hello, everybody. My name is Tommy. I'm the CEO and co-founder here at Mage. We're, in short, a data pipeline tool. And my background, I'm a software engineer, turned data engineer, turned machine learning engineer. That's the natural evolution. And I was at Airbnb for over 5.5 years. And then Thomas, one of my best friends, we also work together.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Okay, cool. My name is Thomas Chung. I lead some of the marketing and growth efforts. I don't do as much of the cool stuff as a lot of my colleagues in the Tommy here. But yeah, it's just very nice to have this opportunity to be part of this workshop.
Thomas is being humble. You know the saying, build, they'll come? No. You build it, and then you ask Thomas, and then Thomas will make them come. So he's being kind. Awesome. Well, it's nice to meet everybody. Would love to also get to know everyone sometime as well. But okay, so what is ELT, ETL, all that good stuff? Those acronyms stand for, actually, first, what's a data pipeline? Data pipeline is very nebulous. How I think of it, or how we think of it, is it's just a series of code that does something with data. And that's very broad. So a data pipeline, when you have those ETL, LTE, whatever combination you want to make it, it stands for extract, load, transform. Also very esoteric terms, but you're basically, step one, you need to get data from somewhere. So they call that extract. I like to call it load, actually, because then, when you download something or you load up your credit card or your prepaid Visa debit card, right? So people like to call it extract. So you extract data from somewhere. It could be from external systems. So let's say you have data in Salesforce, you extract data from there, and then you bring it, what do you do with it? You bring it into your database, your data warehouse, somewhere where you have your other data sets or your tables. That process, they call that data integration. Think of what Fivetran does. And then you have your transform, which is basically anything. It could just, you can literally, remove columns, add columns, clean columns, do whatever you want. It's called transform. Or another term is that you prepare the data, you clean the data, aggregate the data. And then the final step, which you don't always need, is a load. We like to call that export, but then export means you're sending it somewhere externally. So you just got to place that new data somewhere. So let's say you brought the data in from Salesforce, you're combining it with your application data. Maybe you have data in Postgres or Snowflake already. You do some transformations on them, you join them together, do some predictions analysis. You got to stack that somewhere. So they call that load. So you load it somewhere. And so that's typically what a lot of data pipelines do. Again, it's lots of different use cases. Now, let me share quickly. I want to share my screen because we have this really cool infographic. Okay, let's see, share, awesome. You probably can't even see this. I don't know how big your screen is, but I'll just try to zoom in. Okay, so we see the world in kind of these 5 buckets. So you have your lowest layer, your infrastructure pieces, the place that hosts your application, runs basically AWS, GCP, all that good stuff. But then you have all your core, like your databases, your Sparks, all that stuff, right? So think of that as a foundational layer. Then you have all the tools that you use to put this stuff together, all the tools you use to write your code, all the frameworks, all these cool libraries like Polars. And then you have your, also your text editors, notebooks, things like that. Then you have a layer where that runs your code. Here's where you have your orchestrators, your ML ops platforms, your streaming pipelines, your Fivetrans of the world. And then you have your tools that tell you what's going on. Also tools that help you, that's called observability. And then tools that help you, validate your data, like Great Expectations. And then the last layer is you present your data. You built these data products. Data products are basically anything that you use the data for. It's a product. The data is a product. And so you have your presentation layer, things that present it. Think of dashboards, or even things that use the data to power insights or recommendations. Those can also be considered the presentation layer. Okay, so then what is I talked about the data pipeline. So what's a data pipeline tool? Well, you could think of a tool that helps you build data pipelines. I'm sure data pipelines are quite nebulous as well. The alternative to using a tool like a data pipeline tool, what people typically do before they bring on something new like that is you write some Python scripts, or maybe you have some SQL files, and then you could run them on the command line, or maybe you have other scripts that run these scripts. So you're almost building a data pipeline yourself, except you're custom rolling it versus using something that's purposely built for that. The benefits of using something purposely built for it is you get a lot of things for free. You get tracking. You can see a history. So let's say you custom built your own data pipeline tool, which you could do. How do you know what ran last week or the week before? If something fails, are you keeping track of the failures? Things like that. So it's valuable to use a dedicated tool. But hey, if you want to first get started, piecing your scripts together, you should do that to get the sense of how it works, and then use something dedicated. Okay, so let me jump to here. So with currently, when you work, you typically have your text editor, you have your terminal. If you want to use data integrations or streaming, things like that, you have another tool to do that. Some of them are open source, so you have to jump out to log into the SaaS provider, write code there, or use some GUI to click around, and then you integrate it into your current code base via API calls. And then you use Git for version control, and then you push to GitHub. You set up some sort of continuous integration or continuous development so that when your team merges new code into the main branch, it automatically builds, takes that code, and then it puts it somewhere in production so that it runs on a regular basis. So that's where you have production. And then you have your observability tools, things that monitor, or if something breaks, things that alert you, like PagerDuty. So you get woken up in the middle of the night on the weekend. And then, so that's typically how things work right now. And if something breaks, you could go into your logs, look at what's wrong, try to guess what's wrong, and then fix it, right? And then once you fix it locally, you think you fix it, then you, again, make the code commit, do it again, and then see, oh, my fix didn't work, try it all again. So what we've done is we try to streamline this, make this a little easier. So then instead of using a terminal or a text editor that's built to handle many different use cases, we built a text editor or a notebook specifically for building data pipelines. And I'll show you how it works. We also combined essential data engineering capabilities. So how we see the world also is that orchestration is a capability, data integration is a capability, transformation is a capability. In this modern data stack, we have them all spread out, but that's to the detriment. That's to the detriment to the end user, the data engineer. It's to the benefit of the investors who make money from all this. So we've consolidated that into a pretty intuitive tool And so it makes it a lot easier to build what you need in a data pipeline without having to jump around to different tools. Okay, so some key differentiators I want to point out, and this might be hard to imagine until you see the tool, is easy developer experience. That's our number one design principle. So everything that we do, we try to think about, okay, this is the cool feature, but how easy is it to use? Also, if you use the tools, they typically come with the domain-specific language. And what that means is there's a way you do it in that library. So let's take Airflow. You have to import Airflow libraries. You have to put together the steps the Airflow way, right? So it's like their way or the highway. With Mage, we try to stay away from that, so that you don't have to read a couple pages of documentation just to get started. Also, because we provide this user interface along with the execution engine that runs Mage, there's a lot of collaboration features. It makes it a lot easier to reuse code, to work together simultaneously on the same project with your teammates. We also designed the user interface just to build data pipelines, not to write other code, not to write iOS apps or JavaScript app, just data pipelines. We also designed the coding experience so that every step in your pipeline is an individual file. It could be a Python file, SQL file, R file. We're adding TypeScript, Rust, all those. And that makes it so that you could obviously split up your code, but then this helps you split up your code by default, makes it modular. So it can scale horizontally, easier to reuse, and also easier to test. And then finally, I shared before, we combine the data integration capability. So you could sync data from Salesforce, Google Analytics, all that into your main database or data warehouse. Then you could run your transformation pipelines. And then finally, you could run real-time streaming pipelines, which are always on and then always consuming messages or data from some place like Kafka. Okay, here's a bunch of use cases, but let's just jump straight into it. But before we jump into it, did I make everybody fall asleep, or anybody have questions?
Any questions?
You mentioned the modular code. Is there a way to that you can reuse? Is there a way to tag them for finding what they do more easily in the future?
Ooh, good one. Tagging, that's a genius one. Okay, let me write that down. Tagging feature. No, seriously, that's a good one. So we do have tagging on the pipeline level, but not on the block level. That's actually pretty genius. We do bucket the blocks into folders called like data loaders, transformers, but that's might not be granular enough. What people currently do is you can have subfolders. They might have subfolders for kind of like logic, like let's say this is all for cleaning, or this is for enhancing, or for team-based. But in terms of tags, we don't have that yet, but we will soon now. And in terms of discovery of what they do, we are adding a capability to. Well, actually, right now you could use like an open AI model, or some other model you want to generate code. But then we have a way for you to search, not semantic search, where you could say, find me someone that wrote code to remove outliers. We don't have that yet. We will have that, but right now you can type in outliers, and hopefully they name the file outliers, but it doesn't search the contents or even the intent of the contents yet. But that is upcoming though.
Thank you.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah.
Awesome. Great answer. A great question and a great feature suggestion. Any other amazing feature suggestions or questions?
He's right though. In the last summer, I was working on a project and I was using Mage as my pipeline tool. And I ran into an issue where I was using a dynamic block, and I had polars exporting a data frame out of a dynamic block, and it actually gave me like a bunch of problems. And I was talking to the guy who was working on the docs, and then he was like, "Go put it in the Slack." I put it in the Slack, and 2 hours later, it's like 2 a.m. Tommy was all over it. So like they're on top of it, and like he will take your suggestion and he'll make it happen. So they're a really good team, and I think that's the good thing about being a smaller organization, right? You're able to move faster and you're more agile, and you can make those types of integrations very fast.
Yes, absolutely. And our goal is to maintain that even though we grow though. So hold us accountable.
That was great, Tommy.
Awesome. Cool. So let's jump straight into it. Let me share my screen, and I'm just trying to find which browser it's in. Okay. Okay, found it. Okay, so let's do this. All right, 1 second. They should have elevator music when you try to share your screen, or else you have to just try to make up something while you keep people waiting. Okay, great. Now this is a little bit zoomed out, so I'll try this. Is that a little better?
Yeah.
Or I can zoom in as well. Okay, good. Hope you all brought your Opera binoculars. Okay, so when you run Mage, we recommend running Docker. I have all the setup instructions to run this in Docker and Postgres as well. So I already have this set up. I have Postgres running, and I'm using Postgres just because we're gonna send data there and we're gonna take data out. When you run Mage, actually one of our design principles is scaling made simple, which means we designed it to be one service, very easy to get started. In contrast, other services require the main tool. They require a database. They require in-memory data store like Redis. They also require some sort of background queue like Celery, which is something in Python, right? So there's a lot going on there. With Mage, it's just one thing. And then when you want to scale up or you want more advanced functionality, you can incrementally add those pieces into it. So here I have it running in Docker. And the first thing we'll do is we'll build a pipeline. And then I'll show you all the other stuff. Actually, how much time do we have? Because I created this really crazy workshop walkthrough with like some awesome features. But yeah, how much time?
We've got officially planned. We've got 40 minutes.
Okay,
we don't have a cap on the space. I just have a cap on people's time if they get hungry or they have a baby.
Get hungry. Don't ever get between people and their food. Okay, so step one, let's go ahead and load some data. Right? Remember that load data, or people call it extract. So what's great about Mage is it comes with a lot of boilerplate code. Yeah, let's, for example, you don't want to write the same code to get data from S3. It's all the same. There's no difference to it. So we provide a lot of those templates. Now, at the end of the day, everything is just custom code, so you can write the code from scratch yourself. You can also, as an organization or a team, you can create your own templates. So I can say, for users, and then I could say the block type is data loader. Remember, you can have different languages. So let's just do SQL real quick. I could create this, do select star, pretend this is something very complicated, right? Like you don't want your whole team to do over and over. So then for my team, I could create a template, and then I can go here, browse templates, and I can easily add that to my pipeline. Another thing I showed before is how you could find existing code. So I found Titanic. Oh, never mind, that doesn't exist. But I could basically find existing code. Let's call it creative morning, like that. If it was named something better, oh, never mind, forget it. Forget that. Okay, so let's just. But normally, I think my files aren't there. But normally that would add a reference to my that code, so it doesn't duplicate it, which is great. So that you don't have to maintain duplicate code. So first, let's go ahead and add some data to load data from an API. Let me just remove all of this extra code right here, because then you'll see it's pretty straightforward. If I remove all that, it boils down to just a few imports and just a few lines. So let me go ahead and paste in a URL. So this is just some restaurant data I have hosted somewhere. And what's great is you can press this play button and then you can see the output. Now, this helps because if I had an error like that, I could run this and then I can see the error. I don't have to wait till I deploy it to production and cross my fingers. So let's go ahead and run this now. Great. Now we have one step in here. Let's actually load data from another place. I could also drag and drop as well. Let me see if that works. Drag, drop. Oh, great, that does work. So then you can run this and then see the output here as well. Okay, but I don't need this block, so I'm gonna go ahead and delete that. Go ahead, delete that. I'm gonna collapse this so we get more space. Okay, so let's add another block. Let's do this one. And I'm gonna add another block because I wanna show you what it looks like to combine things. Okay, so let's do this one. Awesome. And actually, I want to throw in some tests as well. So another core design principle is engineering best practices built in. we make it easy to write unit tests and also data validations. We make it so easy, we just put it alongside your code. So here I'm testing that the output, so the output of the block has more than 10,000 rows or 10,001 rows. So then when I'm developing and I run it, I can see it failed. So let's say you wrote some code and then somebody else on your team is reusing it, they're refactoring it. They'll run it, they'll see that, oh wait, their refactor broke something. So this will help maintain more reliable code. Also, this runs every single time this block runs in production or in an end-to-end pipeline. So let's say on a day, a spike happens. Well, you'll see, hey, this block will fail, you'll get alerted, then you can go back and see what went wrong. So I'm gonna just fix this so it runs. Okay, great, that runs. Now let's run this. We'll see this fails. So another great thing is we're all about writing less code. And instead of hard coding, so let's look at what's doing. This is basically doing the same exact thing as this one. It's just fetching data from an API, turning it into a data frame. But what I did here is I'm interpolating a variable called data set. The reason why is, let's say you want to reuse this. If I hard coded the value, you're not going to be able to reuse it. You'll have to change the code. So then I can set a variable called data set. And now in my pipeline, I can set data set equals, I think I have it set to product purchases. Yeah, product purchases, like that. And now when I run this, it'll take that variable and it'll stick it in there, then bam, it'll run it. And then for your pipeline, you'll use something else. Okay, so now we have two data loaders. Let's go ahead and combine them. So then we'll combine them, and then I want to lowercase all of these column names and then fill in some spaces in there. So I'll clean them. Then we could go here, add a template. Another great thing is there's no really way you tell Mage in code how each step links together. You use this user interface to do that. Of course, if you really wanted to, you could manually do this. So every pipeline is represented in a YAML file. So if we look here, we got some crazy stuff going on here. Okay, so it's represented like this. Let me see. Yeah, it's represented like that. And so it's just a bunch of, it's YAML, and then there's an array of blocks. And so it's saying, okay, run this, and then it links these two together. That way, you don't have to imagine another library. They typically have it so that you do, task one like this, task two. And then if this is in the pipeline or alongside the code, then you're forced to use this, this link. Now, okay, now we have that. Let's go ahead and run this. All this code is doing is it's lowercasing the columns, it's replacing the spaces, and then it's joining them together on a column called user ID. So now we have a ton of rows and a ton of columns. Cool. Okay, so now we have 1, 2, 3. What's next? Oh, let's do this. You saw how we can validate the data like this, but this is pretty straightforward. It's a bunch of functions. You could literally write anything you want, or you could leverage a library like Great Expectations to run your data validations. And so let's go ahead and add, we call them power-ups. So we can add this empty template. And I'm just going to paste in some code here. This code, you could just look it up, and it's their API. It's just going to test that the output of the data is between 10,000 and 70,000 rows. Again, reusability. So I can have this one expectation or test, and then I can assign it to, or have it run for these 3 blocks. And you'll see in here, you can see that, okay, Jazzy Arcanist is going to run for all of those. So then what will happen is every single time the block runs after it's done, this block also gets ran for each of those. I can also just click this and then see it run while I'm developing to make sure it looks good. Cool, it looks good. Okay, so then now let's go ahead and let's export this data to Postgres. So there's many ways you could do this. You could use a SQL block, you could use Python, or remember what I said about the Fivetran thing? You could use the data integrations. And we use under the hood Singer spec. It's like the most widely used way of doing this. But what we do is, what's great about it is there's a huge community around it. There's hundreds of these already created for Stripe, Facebook ads. So what we do is we'll take what exists and then we'll update the APIs, we'll write tests, we'll standardize it to the best of our ability, and then we bring it into Mage and then we support it. So if anything happens, we're accountable for it. If we need to update anything, we're accountable for it. And it makes it easier for other people to add on to it. So let's go ahead and just use Postgres real quick. There's a lot of free functionality that comes with these data integrations. It's not just moving data around. You actually get, you could have a schema around it. So then you could say this column has to be a number, this column has to be a string. You could also do incremental syncs. So what that means is, let's say you're syncing your user for the first time, you sync 1 million people, and the last user ID was 1 million. The next day, you could sync the whole thing again, actually there's a valid use case for that. But let's say there was an API limit. So you don't want to sync all 1 million again. So then what you do incremental sync, and what Mage will do is it'll look at ID column or any column you want, but let's do ID. It'll look, okay, the last one that was synced was 1 million. So the next time it runs, it will run anything above 1 million. So that's a pretty cool, freebie feature. Okay, so let's go ahead and paste in some highly sensitive credentials. Okay, so let's go test. Okay, that works. Then I can fetch streams. Now, this is a Postgres destination. So the stream is basically what tables can it sync. This is just going to be able to show, this will show me the tables that it's connected to. If you look here, it's connected to only one. But if this was Salesforce or Stripe, it would be like hundreds of different tables you could sync. And those are already pre-configured, so you don't have to worry about them. Okay, so let's go ahead and fetch this. Great, okay. Then we could go inside here. You can do a lot of things. I could give this a new name. I'm gonna call it combo. Actually, combo 2, because I have a combo already. And remember, I told you could do incremental or full table. You could also choose which columns to sync and which not to sync. Maybe we don't care about the skew, so we'll uncheck that. Okay, great. And then now it looks good. Great. So next, we have a pipeline that will load data from APIs, combine, clean, and then it'll export it. Let's go ahead and run it end to end now. Okay, so let's run this once. This is a quick way to just see something works. Oh, actually, I want this to fail so I can show you how we debug. So let me go ahead and cancel this. Let me go back to my pipeline. Okay.
Tommy,
Great.
there's
Okay.
a difference between me and you. You break things on purpose. I break them not on purpose.
What was that? Oh, I see what you did. Yes. Yes. For this one, well, see, I know the answer to it, so I like to break it on purpose. But if I did it, no, I definitely don't want to break things on purpose. Okay, so this should break. But what's great about this is you can see it run. So I can click here. I can see it run. I can see it fail as well. Great, it failed. It worked. Our error worked. So then we can jump into the logs. We can look at each log. Let me kind of zoom in here. I can click here. I can see that genuine Elm failed, and I can see the stack trace. Okay, so look, the great expectation was working. It expected it to be between certain row numbers. Well, I put in some random, look, if you look here, I put in some random data set that doesn't exist. So then obviously, it has 0 rows. So let's go ahead and fix this. Another great thing about this trigger is you can create multiple triggers. A trigger tells a pipeline to run on a schedule every hour, daily, once, things like that. You could also trigger your pipeline from an event. So let's say you want to only run this pipeline if someone uploads something to S3 or some file. Or from an external system, you can make an API call and you could trigger this pipeline on demand. You could also trigger this pipeline from other pipelines, which I'll show you. So let's go ahead and create this once pipeline. I'm going to delete this and then just re-add it. Another really cool thing is you could have one pipeline. Remember all those variables? So there's a lot of companies, product purchases. There's a lot of companies that do this. They combine, they have pipeline, a bunch of variables, and they just create a bunch of triggers. And so they only have to maintain one pipeline, and they just have, let's say I have a trigger that runs for one country hourly and another country daily, things like that. Okay, so let's go ahead and run this once, and hopefully this fixes it. Okay, so we'll go here. Okay, look, it's going. That's great. Oh, another great thing is every block produces data. And so you can imagine if I run this hourly, every hour, every block is produced at that very moment. It's partitioned. So then you could go back in time and you could look at the data that was produced. You know, let's say a year from now, you look at, oh, we're missing $1 million in revenue. Where'd it go? So you could go back and look, hey, look, a whole column is 0 or missing. And then you can go ahead and fix that. Okay, so it looks like it's gonna work and run, and you can see it in real time. So you could track its progress. Great, awesome. You could also look at the logs across all of them and then just see them update in real time. Great. Okay, so now we have one pipeline done. Let's go ahead and build a more advanced pipeline. But first, let's look at, so we took all this data and we exported it to a table called combo2. Okay, so we'll memorize that. Let's just, okay, so it's still running, but let's go ahead and create a new pipeline. Okay, so our next pipeline, what we're gonna do is we're gonna do something with that data. We spent all that effort to get all that data. So let me show you what a SQL block looks like. It's just finding SQL. You can connect to any major database or data warehouse. I have Postgres set up. So let's just use that. And let's do, here is my SQL command. I'm overly complicating this just for demonstration purposes, but you can obviously put this in one command, one SQL statement, but I'm just counting. So there's a column called user ID, I'm grouping it and then counting the rows, and then I'm unnecessarily joining it, but hey, you know, for demonstration purposes. Okay, so let's run this. So this is combo, right? Actually, this is combo 1, because I tested this earlier. Okay, so combo 2 looks good. We have a ton of rows. Looks good. We have a ton of columns. One thing we want to do is, okay, the first 10 columns that we are previewing is for the same user, I believe, right? User ID 1908, and they all have 35. Ooh, it's making me wonder, does everybody have 35? Is this not a real data set? Spoiler alert, it's not a real data set, it's a sample data set, but still, let's take a look. So what we have is, you could have these charts. And these charts are meant to be able to help you quickly visualize. Of course, you could still write matplotlib, seaborn, all that good stuff, plotly yourself, and it'll still output that, but this is just a quick way to look and see. So n events. So we'll take a look at n events. We'll press this play button and we'll see, oh great, whoever generated this data set did a decent distribution. Okay, so not everybody's 35. Okay, cool, we could continue. So next is, I want to show you advanced functionality. So now that we have this giant data set, what we want to do now is there's a cuisine column. So this is a bunch of food data. Oh my goodness, I should have not used food data. You all are going to get more hungry now. Okay, well, pretend this is like fake food. So the fake cuisine, there's a column for that. Let's try to figure out the average for each column. Again, I'm going through a very contrived way of doing this. There's a lot easier ways to do this, but I want to show you some of the features in Mage. So I'm going to add it. Did someone had a question? No? No. Okay, so here I'm adding a transformer block. And what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to paste in some code. So what is this code doing? So the first output, and you can mix and match SQL and Python, by the way. The first output, it's going to basically return this giant table to me. So then I have the table as data, and then I'm selecting the column called cuisine right here, and I'm just going to get the unique list of it. So here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And no pizza here, so sorry, no dinner. Okay, so here we have 5. Great. Now what I want to do is I'm going to split this up so that I can run complex calculations on each of these cuisines. The complex calculation is just average, but imagine you doing something way more complex than that. So I can set this block as dynamic, And then if I run this again, what you'll see is it's going to output what we call child data. So for every item or every row in this list, it will spawn everything below this. I'll add a block after. It'll spawn n number of those, and it'll run them concurrently. And the input into each of those is each row. So let's go ahead and add a custom block. Cool. Let's give it a cool color, pink. Sure, why not? Okay. So then I'm going to paste in some code. So you see this data right here, this one will be, there'll be 5 of them, and the first one will be this, the next one, and so on and so on and so on. So then let's go ahead and run this. Okay, so built-in function has no length. Great. So let's see what happened here. Oh, I think I'm supposed to do metric data index. I see what I did. Okay, so I believe I have to combine this. Yes. Data index metric revenue. Okay. I was supposed to do, this is the child one parent. Okay, so I need to actually, oh yeah, here. So what we do is we need the data from here, the first block. Again, this is very contrived. And then we do the cuisine. So which metrics? So 1 second, I forgot how I did this. Let me see. Okay, so what we're trying to do is we're trying to take the average of this, and then we have the cuisine. Okay, so here we'll do cuisine, and then the data will come from this block. So then we'll do the data metric. Oh, we're supposed to select it. Oh, here. Okay, I missed. Oh, here. Whoops. Okay, that was supposed to be the child block. Okay, so here we're actually going to get. No. We are supposed to select the cuisine from here. Okay, so I got it. So we got the cuisine, which is going to be breakfast. Then we do data is cuisine equals cuisine. I think it's like that. Yes. So let's do that, and then we do that. Let's see if that works. Aha, yes, that works. Okay, so what we did here is we took the data from here, and then we took the cuisine, one cuisine, right, from this. So imagine there was 5 of these. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it basically ran 5 times concurrently, and then it just took the average of the revenue for that. Let's go ahead and add another one. So let's add a downstream block so that we could do revenue and then rating. Okay, so let's go ahead and do this. Let's copy and paste. And we'll change this to rating. And we gotta do that again. Great. So now we can run this and we'll get rating. There's more to this, but let's run and see what this looks like end to end. So let's go ahead and run this once. We have no variables, so that's fine. All right, then let's go ahead and see this run in real time. Cool. Awesome. All right, so it's gonna run the first one, done, great. Then it runs this dynamic block. Remember, the dynamic one is the one that splits things up. Okay, so it's cute. Oh, look, it ran that. Great, let's take a look and see what happens next. So then it's gonna split these up soon. Let's see. There. So look, see, this one had what, 5? It had 5 cuisines. So then it'll produce 5 of the pink one and then 5 of the gray one. And so we could see here, all those values like that. Great, so that worked. Let's add a little bit more to it now. Okay, so next is, let's combine them. So now we have the average revenue per cuisine, and then we have the average rating per cuisine. So now we want to combine this. So let's add another downstream block. Let's do like this. Custom Python block. Let's do teal. Let's give it some cool colors. Let's also make these two pass this data into it. Now, let's go ahead and look. Okay, so the first argument is going to be esoteric feather, which is the rating, okay? And then, actually, do we want rating? No, we want revenue first. So let's go ahead and remove that connection, and then let's do that again. Okay, so the revenue will be first. Now, if we leave it like this, what actually happens is this will get spawned, I think, 100 times. No, 25 times. Because what happens is there's 5 pink blocks, 5 gray blocks, and if they're all dynamic, then any children will get every combination of them. So we don't want that. It looks cool, by the way, but we don't want that. So what we'll want to do is let's reduce the output. So what will happen is they'll fan out. So you'll still have 5 of these and 5 of these, but then at the end of it, any downstream block will get all of those combined into one object. Okay, so let's see what that looks like. So then I paste this in and I run this and it fails. Great. So confirm custom. Okay, so I need to give it a custom. Interesting. Okay, did that run? Okay, so that ran, this ran. Awesome. So let's see. It's missing some upstream. There's a lot more I need to add to it. Okay, so, I wanted to show, we have to replicate. Okay, another really cool feature I want to show off to make this work is replicating blocks. So let's say I wanted to use this block again, but no, I don't want it dynamic, or I want to use it in a different branch of the pipeline. Instead of copying and pasting, I can actually replicate the block like this. So now we have a block replicated called Old Grimoire, and I don't want this to be dynamic, so I can disable this as dynamic. And then what I can do next is I can have this one be the parent of this one. Okay, so just like that. And then I can also, wait 1 second. Oh, it's down there. So let me see. I need to remove this. I need this one to be the parent of this. And then, of course, I need this one to be the parent of that because it needs that original data. Okay, so now let's look. We got revenue for that. Users. So we actually want the users here. So let's do that. Let me actually remove this. It has to be in a specific order because they're positional arguments. Okay, all right, now that works. Okay, so what do we do here? We're taking the average revenue from this person. We're taking the average rating from this one. We're getting all the users from here, and we're getting all the cuisines. And we're just combining them, a giant combination of all of them. And because we didn't run this block yet, so let's go ahead and run that. Okay, that looks good. And then let's run this, and then it creates a giant table. Now it creates a giant table, so I didn't want to look at all of them, and so I'm just outputting the first 5 rows. But when we run this end to end, it will output the combined total. Okay, so last step, because all this work, we need to stash this somewhere. So let's go and use our handy dandy data integration to Postgres. Cool, we did that. Let's paste in some credentials here. So same thing. Whoops. Test the connection. Looks good. Let's look at the streams. Okay, Shining Core. But let's give it a new name. Let's give it a training. This is our training set. I'm going to show you some cool stuff if we have time. And then in here, I don't want these. Okay, then I don't want skew, so I'll uncheck those. Great. Now let's run this end to end. So then we'll run this once. So I had a variable in there called real, so that if real is present or equals 1, then it will take all the data and export it, not just the first 5 rows. Okay, great. So let's go ahead and run this. Now, while this runs, we'll be able to see the status of it. It's going to take a minute or two. I want to show you what it looks like to trigger another pipeline. So you see how if we look at this block, this block depends on combo 2. So we could create a trigger, we could create a schedule and have this run every hour, or we can actually we could add a sensor to make this wait on that other table or that other pipeline to finish, or we could be more advanced and we could trigger that pipeline from our original pipeline. Okay, so that one's called Quiet Paladin. Okay, Silent Enchanter. Of course, you want to rename this to be something more obvious. Okay, so Quiet Paladin, right? Okay, so here we go down here. We can add a block. You can actually add a callback block to this, but I want to show. So callback blocks, you could basically run any bit of code before, on success or failure of any block. But I want to just add a normal block here. Let's go ahead and do that. We have a library to trigger the pipelines. All this is doing is it's making an API call to it. So here we'll do Quiet Paladin. Okay, so now if I run this, so I'm gonna run this, run that. And when that's done, it will trigger this other pipeline. But we don't have to wait around for that. You just take my word for it. Okay, so this is still running. Okay, great, it's still running. Is that connected? Yeah, okay, so nice. Okay, so it just took some time. It combined a ton of data, like 70,000 rows. Great, so it's still running, so we'll let it keep running. In the meantime, how do we make sure everything is smooth? Well, we do have some built-in monitoring. So you can see these charts, you can see the runs, you can see how long they take. You can even go to the main dashboard and then you can see the last 7 days, the last 30 days. But also you could construct your own dashboard. You could add custom charts or you can add some recommended charts. And this is just a pre-filled out chart. But if you look inside of it, what is it doing? It's choosing a chart type. You could say that the data source is, you could write custom code or the output of a block so you could visualize your data. But you can write custom code as well. So this is at a project level. You could even do it at a pipeline level. So here I had charts for that complex pipeline that joins everything together. Okay, so this failed, but that's fine. We'll move on because we had it complete already. Okay, so next part is version control. Now that we have all this gnarly code and we want to commit it and have it run in production, we can jump to our version control app and we could take a look here, what's going on here. Okay, so I already have this instantiated. So, but you could basically set up your Git repo. You could manage multiple different repos inside of a Mage project. So if I had multiple Mage projects or other non-Mage projects inside a mono repo, I can have a Git repository for each one. So you don't have to, command line switch to every single one all the time. You can just go here and then do your commits in a single Git repository from here. And I also authenticated with GitHub already. You could obviously remove it and authenticate. You can authenticate with GitLab, all these other good stuff. Okay, so let's see what branch. I'm on dev branch already. Maybe we call it dev 2. Great, create a dev 2 branch. Let's go to commit. We have all these files that we need to commit. Here's all our logs, what we would do before. Okay, some first commit. Let's see, I like this one and this one. I think these are good to go, so I'm gonna stage them. Create their stage. Someone had a question?
No.
Oh, okay. Let's do cool demo. And then we commit this. Okay, looks good. See? And then we could actually create, we could push this and create a pull request. I don't have a repo already set up for this, so I can't push because I don't add an origin. But you can do all that from here. The only thing you can't do from here is leave a comment on your pull request. Maybe we'll add that actually. And then the merging of it. But everything else, you could do that. And if you go back to, remember that chart I showed you about jumping around different tools? Well, there's less jumping around here. Okay, so then, I don't know how much time we have left. I could show off this last thing, this really cool last thing. Actually, I'll show off this really cool last thing. Okay, so now that we built our pipeline, we pull data from one place, we're combining it all, we're exporting it, we're doing all these cool data integrations. The last thing, maybe you want to run some predictions on them. So let's go ahead and build another pipeline. What I couldn't fit into this demo is the streaming pipeline. Maybe we could do that for a follow-up because that's pretty cool as well. So let's go ahead and do an ML pipeline. So here I can do this. I can go in my requirements Again, this looks all crazy. Okay, whatever. But basically about requirements, I added scikit-learn. It's a pretty awesome file. And then what I do now is I'm going to load some data from the training set. Yes, it was training set. So then we'll do default is select star from mage.training set 2. Okay, that didn't work. I think it was training set. Let's do training set. Oh, okay, that didn't work. Training set 2, Postgres default. Mage training set does not exist. Huh. Oh, okay, there. Okay, great. This does exist. Okay, we got 200,000 rows. Great. Now we have our training set. Now, or our raw data set. It's not a training set yet because we have to clean it all, but I'll just fast forward that. Let's go ahead and add a custom block. I'm going to paste a bunch of pre-written code already, but I'll tell you what it does. All this is doing is it's taking that input data. So it's taking this raw data. It's only selecting a few columns. So I only want the number of columns. Remember those average columns that we created? So we're taking the average, the rating, the revenue. We want to predict, there's a column called number of purchases. Maybe we want to do LTV or something like that. So then the number of purchases right here. So we think by estimating their rating that they give the product and the revenue the product generates, we can predict how many things they'll buy in our store. So then what we're doing is, so that's just one function. Oh, I gotta change this number. Okay, and then we're using a built-in library called logistic regression. It just predicts a number. Actually, I think it predicts yes or no. Okay, then we're then evaluating the accuracy of it, and then we're training the model right here. So let's go ahead and run this, see what happens. It's gonna do it pretty fast since it's only 200,000 rows and it's only 5 columns. And look, 42% accurate. That's surprising, that's really good. It's a fake data set, so that's why it's actually pretty good. But look, now we built a ML pipeline. And the last thing we could do is we'd actually create a trigger, an API trigger, that then will run it, but also spit back the predictions. Actually, I don't have that set up right now. We can save that for a future one. We already have 5 minutes left. I was talking the whole time, so would love to chat with you all.
Well, any questions? Start off.
I didn't quite see how you knew there was a variable set. Somewhere I saw that you said it, but like where does that show up since it's not a little block on the pipeline there?
Yep, so the variable is tied to the pipeline or the trigger itself. So, but in code, in a Python block, all the variables come from keyword arguments. In a SQL block, all the variables, you could interpolate it doing like this, variables, right? So that's in a SQL or YAML file. Now, the variable is tied to the pipeline in the metadata of the pipeline. So here I wrote it here, but if I didn't do this, I could totally just remove that. And then when I create a trigger, I can say, what was it, data set equals product purchases. And now whenever this trigger runs, it uses this variable value and name. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I was just looking for a visual cue that there was a variable somewhere, and I hadn't noticed that x equals icon on the right.
Oh, that's a good one. That would be a good one to do, right? Basically, let's say this has a variable. Somehow, somewhere say, hey, look, you got a variable, right? Something like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me show you this really cool feature. But we don't have that yet. I'm gonna write that down. Hold on, let me write this, variable visual cue. Okay, there's this way where you could do where, let's say you're technical, you build data pipeline, but most of us are building data pipelines for somebody else. Well, okay, I'm gonna create this pipeline, I'll put a bunch of variables, and then I'm going to make it so that they can self-serve. They can run it on their own without me, right? So test, I can add a variable called data set. I can add a input. So let's do the input test string, add an input. This is like super advanced stuff, but basically what I'm layering on top of it is a text field. So if you look here, right, so I could do product purchases like that, and then I could run this and it'll use that. So it'll use that like that. Now, if you add this, then you do get this part. And then what this looks like is if I do a new trigger, I can basically do schedule. So from the non-engineer perspective, they'll be able to see, this part, and then they'll be able to fill in stuff and then run it. But good feature suggestion.
How do you run this against your dev or like a staging database or a prod database? Like, is there an easy way to switch between your environments?
Yes, there definitely. So what we recommend doing is, hold on, let me fix this. Hold on. Okay, that's messed up. But what we recommend doing is in your credentials file. In your credentials, what you do is you can have different, you can interpolate. So let's say this is the database name. Maybe we prefix it with something like n bar, like this. Or is it like this? I forget. I think it's like this. Actually, I don't remember anymore. You could do it like this, something like that, and then it'll be mage_dev or mage_production, or maybe you just have it completely like this. You could do that using environment variables, or you could use a secret manager as well. Mage comes with a secret manager, or you can connect to any of the cloud provider secret manager. So that's how people are switching between different environments, the database they connect to, things like that, in development and production or staging. Did that answer your question?
Yeah. And then do you have like a terminal window that you can open from here? Like half the things I do in VS Code are also terminal window.
Yep. You could do stuff like here, like ls. Then we could do mono repo. So yeah, this pulls up a terminal. You can even do IPython if you want. You can also do multiple tabs if you want. So yeah, absolutely. cd mono repo, get status. Yeah.
Okay.
I can also have this side by side too, like that. Cool. Any other questions, thoughts, ideas, feedback?
Does this run in a browser, or is this like an app? Or
What was that?
Does this run in a browser or an app? What's the?
Oh yeah, this currently runs in a browser. So you go to localhost, 6789. So it runs in the browser right now.
Okay. So this is all in like a web browser. These are just.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. I'm using a browser called Arc, so it has like you can't really see the Chrome part of it, but if I like expand this, yeah, it's running in my browser. Like a localhost right there. Oh, by the way, everything is an API. Everything you saw, everything I did in that user interface is through a CRUD REST API, create, read, update, delete. Everything is an API endpoint. Like, for example, here's just a list of the pipeline. I can make a post request, right? And then there's authentication. So we have user management built in. So you can enable it. It's off by default, but you can enable it. And then you can create users. They have to sign in. You can give them different permissions. And those API endpoints can also be gated on those permissions. So here I have one user. I can create a different user, right? So like blah, blah, blah. Okay. And then I can also give them different types of permissions as well. And yeah, everything's API endpoint. Very extensible. Cool. Great question. Any other questions? Maybe a future one, I can show you how we could use this with Spark. I could show more of the machine learning stuff, streaming pipeline as well. Show you some more advanced functionality.
Yeah, I think we'd like to schedule maybe like a second session, and we do that one fully virtual. So everyone could be virtual for this one, and then we could do that as like a free add-on to this. And just check that out. Check especially how it works with Spark and feeding a machine learning pipeline, and possibly the streaming pipeline element as well.
Cool. Yeah, let's do that.
This was a really great session. Any more questions before we wrap up? Yeah, Tommy, this was a really great session. Thank you so much for taking your time out.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thanks everyone. Please come hang out with us. Mage.ai/chat, CHAT. Maybe we'll do Mage AI/pizza one time, but come hang out. Come hang out, chat with us, give us more of those great features. Those are great ideas.
And Tommy, I'll send you the link to this recording once it's up.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Looking forward to meeting all of you. See ya.
See you.
And there you have it. That was Tommy and the team at Mage coming to speak to the Full Stack Data Workshops on March 26, 2024. A little bit more about the tool and some of the things they're building over there. Tommy moves fast, so if you didn't watch the whole video, there might be pieces you missed, but if you were able to watch most of it, you definitely picked up a lot of the important details that Tommy was able to cover. So definitely look forward to the growth that this team will experience. You can find the website at mage.ai. They also have a really great Slack channel that you can join. And you can find me on LinkedIn, Sam LaFell, across all the platforms, actually, it's Sam LaFell. So thanks for joining again. Thanks for watching. And we'll be putting more videos up for this quarter and this year for the different things we're going to cover in the Full Stack Data Workshop. Looking forward to see you there. Definitely let me know if there's any questions, comments, or concerns. Appreciate it. Have a great day.